I welcome all participants for the forenoon session. Keynote address. I take this opportunity to introduce Dr. S. Kalaiselvam, Professor and Head Department of Applied Science and Technology, Anna University, Chennai, our keynote speaker and session chair for forenoon session. Professor S. Kalaiselvam received his BE Mechanical Engineering from Government College of Engineering, Salem. He completed his ME Refrigeration and Air Conditioning from Anna University, Chennai, and done his PhD Mechanical Engineering from Anna University in 2006. Since 2013, he has been working as the head of the Department of Applied Science and Technology, Anna University, Chennai. His research interests include nano and micro heat transfer, renewable and sustainable energy storage, phase change materials, nanosynthesis, and nanocomposites. He published nearly 92 technical papers in various international journals. He has 7 patents, 2 books, and also 6 book chapters, along with 90 papers in national and international conference. He has been in the top 2% scientists across the world, according to the analysis compiled by researchers from Stanford University, USA. He received the Tamil Nadu Young Scientist Award 2014 by the Government of Tamil Nadu, Active Research Award 2013 by Center for Technology Development and Transfer, and also Best National Social Service Program Officer in 2012 to Young Mechanical Engineer in 2010 from Institute of Engineers, India, and Young Scientist 2009 to 10 from Department of Science and Technology. He is also an active member in the Indian Institute of Chemicals Engineers, Safety Engineers Association, and the Indian Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers. I'm really happy to welcome you, sir. Now, I hand over the session to Dr. S. Kalaiselvam for delivering the keynote address.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the nice introduction. So this morning, I'm going to talk the keynote. Talk is Sustainable Thermal Energy Storage Technologies or green buildings. First, let me discuss what's a green building, the importance of the green buildings. Maybe once you understand the concept of a green building, the importance, then I will show you our research, how it would be implemented to attain this green building concepts. So whatever the stuff that we are going to present today, it's all from this 2 research book. And again, for your information, the first book is authored by myself and Dr. Parameswaran. And you are very fortunate enough today, he is also the speaker for this international conference. He's a good researcher too. And again, the second research edited book, even in this, Dr. Parameswaran contributed a lot for this chapter in this editorial books. One is from Elsevier, the other is from Springer. So now we'll move on to this topic, green buildings. Why is building green? Rating system for green buildings and the benefits. So if I say the green building, if you imagine that the building may or a residential complex may be constructed in a green environment or in the tree or the branches of tree itself. Let me discuss. So this is a concept of the green buildings. So whenever there is a building is green, it has a good exposure of sunlight. If I say a good exposure of sunlight, then the people across the regional area or in the tropical climatic areas, they may argue with me if I allow more sunlight, then there may be a possibilities of heat infiltration. If there is a heat infiltration, to reduce the solar heat gain, they have to go for a higher efficiency air conditioning system to offset the load. Yeah, that is true. But here in case of a green building, you have to use the daylight and you have to provide suitable insulating material or insulated glass, a high efficiency insulated glass windows that will allow only the lighting and it will prevent the heat that is entered into the building. If the building is green, then the entire building, we have to go with the daylight. Okay. And again, in the forthcoming slides, I will let you know what are the green buildings that across the country. Then it must have a rain garden and native landscaping. And again, I'm a member of the site appraisal committee, the government of Tamil Nadu, for the industrial safety and hazardous management, industrial safety and health. So whenever the industry is handling the hazardous material, they are supposed to come for an approval. We are in the high level committee approving the industry. And again, we insist the industry to go with the native landscaping. Normally, you all know that most of the industries, they have a landscaping, but they don't bother about the native landscaping. But these days, even the government of India or Tamil Nadu, we insist to go for a native landscaping because there are a lot of advantage in that. That also witness the trees that is escaped from Varada or some other unwanted incidents, right? Or Gaja, these are all the cases, native plants get escaped. So we insist the industry to go for a native plants. Even green building concepts also that insist the plantation of native plants and trees. And we have to conserve the water. And in the residential or the green buildings, we have to use high efficiency mechanical systems to reduce the electric energy. Wherever possible, you have to go for a photovoltaics energy systems to have to harvest the solar energy for electricity as well as the heating. And in the green building, you have to use energy efficient appliances. And you have to go for insulated basement floors, insulated foundation wall, and wherever possible, you have to go for a recyclable material. And you have to use the low volatile component paints and other material to obtain a green buildings. So our concentration is on the high energy, high efficiency mechanical system and energy efficient appliances. As a mechanical engineer, we can give an input to obtain a building to be a green. So why the building is green? Let me discuss. The impact of building on resources. So 40% of the primary energy used by the buildings. Out of the total electric consumptions, 72% of the electricity was consumed by the buildings. And these days, even the guest speaker narrated the importance of the global warming, a greenhouse gas emission. Normally, we might have thought that the industry is the culprit for the CO2 emission. It's not to be the real case. Our building so our building, that building materials or the material used for the building, for the manufacturing of the material, it's all to be taken into account. Sort of total CO2 emission, our building itself contributes 39% of CO2 emission. And this is very obvious. The water consumption, you all know that 13.6% of total consumption was by the buildings. So this is a huge impact on energy by the building and building materials. If you use the green building, if you use the green building concept in the forthcoming construction of buildings, it has reduced the energy usage by 24 to 50%, and the CO2 emission from 33 to 39%, and the water usage is reduced by 40%, and the solid waste is reduced by 70%. So this is the real benefit for the usage of the green buildings. So as you all know that the people spend 90% of the time in indoor. And again, you all know that the indoor pollutant level may be 2 to 5 times greater than the outdoor. As you all know that the outdoor CO2 concentration, or normally for the indoor, we say the pollutant, the CO2 is the pollutant. If you measure the outdoor CO2 concentration, it is 352. So the outdoor concentration that varies from 350 to 450 ppm of CO2 concentration, but the permissible level, the ashtray in indoor is 1000 to 1200 ppm. That is the permitted level. The permitted level. That's a threshold limit values for any indoor. That itself coming around more than 3 times. But that's the way the indoor pollutant level is 2 to 5 times greater than outdoor. If you are not maintain the proper indoor, there is a loss in productivity and absenteeism. There are a lot of research reported. So we have to give much importance for the indoor environment. If you go for a green buildings, that itself makes the building healthier and go for a higher productivity. As far as the ratings are concerned, so these are all the rating systems adapted worldwide. LEED, BREEAM, CAS-BE, that is by Japan, DGNB, Green Star. So in India, we are following IGBC and LEED, that is very similar to the US rating. So this is the history of the formation of the Green Building Council. It was created by US in the year 1998. And this is one of the nationally recognized standard for the green building across countries. And it's also adopted in Canada, Australia, Hong Kong, and India too. So as far as the LEED 2009 is concerned, so this is the weightage is given. Climate change is higher weightage, followed by indoor environmental quality, resource depletion, human health criteria, water intake, and this is the weightage given in late 2009. This is the LEED certification scorecard for indoor environmental quality. 17% is given. Sustainable sites, 21% is given. Water efficiency, 11%. Energy and atmospheric effect, that is 37%. Material resources, that comes for 14%. This is the scorecard or scorecard breakdown for the LEED certification. To obtain a LEED certification as an engineer, we have to give the importance for this particular area. As far as the certifications are concerned, yes, Pawan Kumar, any questions? Pawan Kumar? Yes, please, you can post your question. Okay. As far as the certifications are concerned, if you score 40 to 49, it's only a certification will be given. 50 to 59 points, silver rating will be given. For gold rating, you are supposed to score 60 to 79. For the platinum rating, they have to score 80 to 100 points. As far as the indoor environmental qualities are concerned, we have to use the low emitting material. You have to emphasize the importance of the ventilations, thermal comfort, daylighting, and the overall views. Energy and atmosphere, it's again, you have to give the importance of the renewable energy, performance measurements, and the life cycle assessments. And these are all some of the LEED rated building. This particular building got LEED gold rated, and you all know that this is the Terminal 1 of Bangalore International Airport. This secured LEED silver certified. If you visit this particular airport, you can observe the usage of the daylighting and other procedures. It's easily visible to you. It's an international airport, Bangalore. And again, it's a well-known. It was constructed for Secretariat. So at that time, the LEED certification will be given, but it is not used for that purpose. So it's cancelled. So this again, one of the landmark of Chennai, Anna Centenary Library. It's again a LEED certified building. I think most of the people in Chennai visited this EA mall. It's again a LEED rated building. So normally if you want to get a LEED gold, you have to use recycling 92% of construction related debris for the buildings, and they have to use the ground thermal energy for heating or cooling. And you have to use the high performance insulating material for the exterior wall, and automated windows shades to limit the exposure of heat or cold that infiltrate into the building. And I stated earlier, natural lighting has to be the glass for natural lighting. You have to reduce the usage of the electrical lights during daytime, and solar panels to harvest the energy to obtain the LEED gold. And this is the varying performance level. The most of the typical buildings that's coming under this 70% of the conventional buildings. Mostly you all know that there are 5% or lawbreakers. They will not come into this area. And the market is shifting towards the green building. Already 20% of the people, they are the market leaders. So this 70% is trying to move this towards the green building concepts. Why there's a demand for a green building? So there are a lot of initiative may be given by the government. There's a great demand or residential demand for the green construction and improvements in sustainable materials. So these are business perspectives for the benefit of the green buildings. So whenever there is a business perspectives or business benefits, then only the industry will move towards the green building concepts, or the residents itself get ready for moving towards the green building. If you implement the green buildings into your building, concepts into a building, the operating cost of that particular building reduces by 8 to 9%, and your building valuation increases by 7.5%. And whenever there is an investment, we are looking for the returns. So as far as the green building is concerned, the returns is improved by 6.6%. And the occupancy ratio increased by 3.5%. And the rent increases by 3%. So these are all the business perspectives for the implementation of the green buildings. This is benefits for the builders, and this is the consumer benefits. The buildings will have, the green buildings will have the benefits for both builders as well as the consumers. For builders, the cost is reduced, increased revenue, and high profits. In case of consumer perspectives, healthier indoor environment, more comfortable, more durable, 30 to 60% of more energy efficient, and more environmentally responsible. So these are all the benefits for the builders as well as the consumers. Both the builders and the consumers are benefited. So the market paradigm is moving towards the green building concepts. So as far as now we move on to this, narrow down to the zero energy buildings, in the sense you are not supposed to get even a single energy from outside. You have to use whatever the energy that is available in you itself. And you are not supposed to let out even any waste out of the buildings. So this is the, so here the delivered energy and imported must, so you are not supposed to use any of the outside energy. If you use outside energy, equal amount of energy has to be, you have to give to the grid by using photovoltaics. To obtain this, the green building concepts, we, a mechanical engineer, we are using nanotechnology. Even the Vice Chancellor of this university emphasizes the importance of the nanotechnology, and the previous, the chief guest is also tell the importance of the nanotechnology. So why this is so important in the sense, it increases the surface area, the interface and the size of it. So because of that, the nanotechnology plays a vital role. So this is the simplest method of producing this or synthesis of nanomaterial. So it's a bulk material. It has to be bring down to this nanoscale by crushing or by milling. And this is the bottom-up approach of the synthesis of nanomaterial. So single atom has to be built. Depending upon the size and the shape, it has to be built. A typical example, if you place a coin one over above, that forms a cylinder, right? A single coin, you place a coin one over above, it forms a cylindrical shape. Similarly, the atom has to be constructed in such a way that whatever the shape and the size that you want, you can build it. Mostly, we, the nano people, we use mostly the bottom-up approach for the synthesis of nanomaterials. And these are all some of the nanomaterials. This nano particles, nano rods, and this is nano sheets, and 3D, this is a 3D nano materials. And this already discussed. So for any presentation, I will put the slides if I go for a nano level presentation. Why this is so important in the sense, you take a typical example of carbon nanotubes. The carbon is a bulk material. As a bulk material, it's a good insulator. We make as a nano, that is carbon nanotubes. It's better than the conductivity of that particular carbon nanotubes is better than copper. And whenever I say the transistor material, you immediately say the silicon is a good transistor material. But this particular carbon nanotubes is the better transistor material compared to the silicon. Heat conductivity, immediately we say the diamond, but this carbon nanotubes conducts twice the heat compared to this diamond. Field emission 50 times efficient as molybdenum, and this carbon nanotubes is also to be stable up to 1500 degrees centigrade. And we also that for the aircraft applications, they use aluminum because it's a dense, it's a lightweight material. As far as the carbon nanotubes are concerned, it is half a time dense as of aluminum. And whenever we say the strength, stronger, that is, we say that steel is stronger. But as far as the carbon nanotubes is 25 times stronger than the steel. Even though there are a lot of superior property of this carbon nanotubes, the implementing in the commercial way or replacing all this above material, there are a lot of challenges involved in that. Maybe as a researcher, you have to make the effectively use of this particular nanomaterial to replace the conventional material that makes higher efficient. And this is the photographic view of carbon nanotubes. This is a multi-wall carbon nanotubes, and this is a single wall carbon nanotubes, and this is a nanofiber. And this again a carbon nanofibers. And this is the carbon nanofiber. It's again the property similar to that of our carbon nanotubes, but synthesis of this particular carbon nanofibers is a very simple process. And these are all some of the carbon nanofibers. And this is the carbon nanofibers that was produced or synthesis in our laboratory for the medical applications. And this is the PLG carbon nanofiber that was synthesis in our laboratory for the medical applications. And again, this is again the nanofibers that was synthesized in our laboratory for the application of capacitor applications or supercapacitor applications. And I will move on to this thermal energy storage systems. So normally the thermal energy storage systems are widely used to offset the load conditions. So as far as to store the latent heat, we have a sensible as well as the latent heat. As far as the sensible heat is concerned, it may be difficult, or the quantity of the energy storage density may be very less in case of the sensible heat storage. And the storage density for the latent storage is high. And again, it will provide a correct temperature, a particular temperature. Suppose if you want to maintain 20 degrees centigrade, there are phase change materials available. You can maintain a constant temperature. Okay. And as far as the application, maybe I will try to complete in another 10 minutes. The PCM, it's a cooling applications, heating applications, cooling applications in the sense, energy savings in telecom sectors, reduce the air conditioning cost in building industries, cold storage applications, and heating applications like hot water, boiler industries, living rooms, swimming pool, etc. And other applications in the sense that include pharmaceutical, biopharmaceutical industries, food and poultry transport. And it's also used as a thermal weir for adverse climatic conditions. And this is the actual space. And this is the chiller plant, and this is our storage. And this is a close view of the thermal energy storage system. This is a tank where the heat energy or cooling energy can be stored. How the current is stored in our battery. So this is storage for store the heat or the cool energy. And this is the PCM for heating applications. The solar collector collect the heat energy. It has to be transferred to this storage tank, and this is to be stored in this phase change material, and depending upon the requirements, it has to be delivered to the particular section where we require that heat. And this is the PCMs for thermal jackets. The soldiers or people working in extreme climates, to make their feel comfort or to make them comfort, there are thermal jackets are to be available. So inside the jacket we have this phase change materials. Now because the temperature at this Himalayas may be very low, maybe minus 50 or minus 60 degrees centigrade, the people may not be comfortable there. So they have to provide a jacket. The normal jacket will not provide comfort. So we use the PCM based jackets, and we also patented a technology for this PCM jackets. And this is the PCM balls where the PCM materials are to be stored. And this is the way it is arranged in a storage tank. And this is nanomaterials. And again, as far as our case is concerned, we prefer the battery has to be charged at the earliest. Similarly, in case of the energy storage also, we have to store the energy at very faster rates, and releasing must be in a controlled manner. In some applications, it may be in the reverse. So here we are using the pure PCM, that is 60% of N tetradecane and 40% of N-hexadecane. It forms a pure PCM. By adding this aluminum nanomaterial, the solidification reduced by 12%. If we use the aluminum nanomaterial, the solidification reduced by 4.2%. In case of lauric acid, the solidification reduced by 16.3%. And if you use the nanomaterial, aluminum nanomaterial, it is by 8%. So these are all a PCM, and this is a reduction in the solidification rate. By adding this nanomaterial, our PCMs solidified at a very faster rate. Yes, this we can skip. And these are all some of the PCM with copper oxide nanomaterial. This is oleic acid nanomaterial in a pure form. By adding 5%, 1%, 1.5%, how it has to be. And this is a photographic view of the solidification image. It was done by our researcher. This again, the image of the nanomaterial that was produced. And this again, a solidification melting curve of the PCMs with nanomaterials. So here, if you look at that particular solidification and melting curve, the solidification and discharge rate reduces. And by adding this nanomaterial, there is a slight change in the latent heat that is also acceptable by the research community. So you may be wonder why the solidification reduces. So for that, there is an evidence stated that by adding this nanomaterial, the thermal conductivity of that particular fluid increases. This without nanomaterial, by adding this nanomaterial, your thermal conductivity increases. And this is the copper, water with copper nanomaterials. And this is the TEM image of copper oxide nanomaterial. And this is the photographic view of the silver nanomaterial that was synthesized in our laboratory. It was produced, it was synthesized by the researcher of our laboratory, Dr. Parameswaran. He is also to be the speaker for this conference. And this is the TEM image. It's again synthesized by Dr. Parameswaran. This is the same image of the silver nanomaterial that was produced in our laboratory. And this I can skip. And this is the PCM with water and copper oxide nanomaterial. This is a PCM with water with graphene nanomaterial. And this is the hybrid nanomaterial, that is Ag TiO2 hybrid nanocomposite material. And this is the solidification and melting curve. And this is the freezing picture of the hybrid nano-etching materials. And this is it's again the sedimentation photograph of the composite PCMs. That is paraffin with copper oxide, paraffin with TiO2, paraffin with copper oxide and TiO2. This is one solidification and the melting curve. And this is the photographic view of copper oxide nanomaterial, TiO2, and the hybrid copper oxide and TiO2 nanomaterial. And this is by adding this nanomaterial, how the melting and freezing temperature changes, and the latent heat is also to be slight changes. This again the conductivity I will already show. This is the stearic acid with TiO2 nanomaterial latent heat curve and conductivity. It's again conductivity curve. This is the synthesis protocol of the hybrid nanocomposite material. Maybe of the time scarcity, I can give an overview of that. If you want to have a detailed understanding of this particular thing, you can refer this particular. That is why for all the slides, below that the reference is also to be given. It's again whatever I'm presenting here. It's all published in a reputed international journal. This again Ag TiO2 hybrid nanomaterial. Yes, I can skip this. So you may have a doubt when by adding this nanomaterial, at what proportion we are supposed to stop it. So for that, so this is the viscosity curve, and this is the latent heat curve, latent heat of melting, and this latent heat of freezing. At one particular point, it will meet. At that particular proportion, it will give good results. So beyond that, there may be possibilities of aggregations, or the results may not be good. This again the thermal conductivity. So you may have asked whether instead of going for a nanomaterial, we can also put a fins into that, the ball. So we also tried that, and the results is also to be obtained. And we concluded that instead of putting the fins, if you put a nanomaterial, the effect will be much more perfect, or much more enhanced results may be obtained. And this is the carbon fibers or activated carbon. This is the image of the activated carbon that was produced in our laboratory. for energy storage applications. And this is an activated carbon with heterotic PCM, how it has to be formed. And this is the application for that PCM, that is for banana ripening storage. That particular PCMs can be used. This is heterotic curve. This is an activate. This is the temperature, the freezing and melting curve. This is a thermal expansibility. And here the comparison is given for pure heterotic PCM. I mean, it's solid stage, what's a conductivity, and the liquid state, what's a conductivity. And the next level is, previously we go for a liquid PCMs. That is, we may require a container to store it. But this next level, that is micro-encapsulated PCMs. The PCM itself is stored in a micro-encapsulated form. It is like a powder. Normally, if you take a water, it is encapsulated as a powder form. Water is a very good PCM. So here, if you take this at high temperature, this is an heterotic picture. This is a micro-encapsulated PCM. It's in solid state, This heterotic mixture at 0 degrees centigrade, it's solid. It become plus 5 degrees centigrade, it started melting, but micro-encapsulated PCM still at the same state. At plus 25, it becomes full liquid. The state is not changed, but there is a latent heat storage takes place. And this is again a micro-encapsulated PCMs. This is some image. The thermal conductivity of oleic acid and the micro-encapsulated PCMs. Yes, we can skip that. This is a ternary mixture with multi-wall carbon nanotubes. This is for tomato ripening. We synthesize a PCM, we produce nanomaterials with PCMs. And this is again micro-encapsulated PCMs with the Ag and zinc oxide dope. This is the micro-encapsulated PCM with cell PCMs with SiO2 and SnO2 material, PCM nanomaterials. It's again the curve, whole fraction of the heterotic PCMs. It's again a SiO2 nano-encapsulated PCMs. So it will be like that. You go for a 10 studies. Yeah, the same type of studies has to be studied to confirm how it would be. Yes. So we also used the same material for the building applications. That is, so this is the conventional brick material with normal PCMs. So we synthesized the micro-encapsulated PCM and plastered over the surface. We conducted a lot of studies in that. And for that, we use this psychrometric chamber to study the brick material. So here, the outdoor environment can be maintained. This indoor condition has to be maintained. How the brick performed, that was studied here. And this is the capacity of the psychrometric chamber. Maybe in another 2 minutes, I will complete it. And this is the way we test the PCM bricks, the performance of the PCM bricks. So normally, in case of the PCM bricks, the cycling time increases if you go for a PCM impregnated building bricks. Okay. Thank you.